The silver diplomatic vessel of the Galactic Confederation docked at Earth's orbital station with precise mechanical movements. Ambassador Tejo adjusted his translator as he led the delegation toward the waiting human representatives. Earth had only recently joined the Confederation, and this cultural exchange tour was meant to strengthen relations. Tejo was particularly interested in human technological achievements, which had advanced surprisingly quickly despite their relative isolation. "Welcome to Earth," said Director Hyunwoo, bowing slightly. "We have prepared an extensive tour of our achievements and cultural sites. Over the next 3 days, the delegation visited cities, museums, and research centers. But Tejo kept noticing something odd: heavily fortified facilities in remote locations that weren't on any official itinerary. When their shuttle passed over one such complex, surrounded by multiple security perimeters, he couldn't contain his curiosity any longer. "What purpose does that installation serve?" he asked. Director Hyunwoo's expression tightened. "Just one of our containment facilities. Standard security protocols." "Containment for what exactly?" pressed Tejo. "Environmental hazards. Nothing to concern your delegation," Hyunwoo replied, quickly changing subjects. That night, Tejo used his diplomatic access to search through files. What he discovered left him stunned. Earth wasn't just a young civilization joining the galactic community. It was a planet-sized prison for forces that could unravel reality itself. Tejo's fingers trembled as he scrolled through document after document. Some dated back hundreds of human years, detailing containment procedures for entities with impossible abilities. Others were recent reports of incidents that should have destroyed entire regions but were somehow contained. He found himself most disturbed by the casual, clinical language the humans used. They categorized world-ending threats with simple numerical codes. They discussed reality breaches like minor inconveniences. Most shocking of all, they had been doing this long before they developed space travel. The next morning, Tejo couldn't look at Director Hyunwoo the same way. How could these seemingly ordinary humans live knowing what lurked beneath their feet, behind reinforced walls? "Is everything all right, Ambassador?" Hyunwoo asked, noticing Tejo's distraction during breakfast. "Yes, just processing all I've learned about Earth," Tejo replied carefully. Hyunwoo studied him for a moment too long. "I see. Perhaps today we should adjust our itinerary." Instead of visiting the planned cultural sites, Hyunwoo took the delegation to a military academy. Young humans trained with both advanced weapons and strangely ancient-looking ceremonial tools. "This is a containment response unit in training," Hyunwoo explained, dropping all pretense. "You accessed our files last night, didn't you?" Tejo felt his skin flush. "I apologize for the intrusion, but as representative of the Confederation—" "No need to explain," Hyunwoo interrupted. "We expected curiosity. What we debate was how much to reveal and when." A young cadet approached with a black box. Inside was what looked like an ordinary stone tablet covered in symbols. "This is a warning marker," Hyunwoo explained, "designed to last 10,000 years. We've found identical ones on every continent, from civilizations that had no contact with each other." "They all knew?" Tejo asked. "They all faced the same threats. Some contained them. Some worshipped them. Some were destroyed by them. We learned from their successes and failures." Tejo watched as cadets practiced complex movements while reciting what sounded like poetry. "Why mix ancient rituals with modern technology?" he asked. "Because some threats respond to symbolism and intent more than physical force," Hyunwoo said. "The old ways work for reasons we're still trying to understand scientifically." Later that day, Hyunwoo took Tejo alone to a small unmarked building. Inside, elderly humans sat at desks monitoring screens full of unusual data. One screen showed what looked like a heartbeat, but scaled to minutes rather than seconds. "What am I looking at?" Tejo asked. "That's Site 27. The entity there dreams once every 38 minutes. If the dream pattern changes even slightly, we evacuate half the continent." Tejo felt cold. "And you just live with this?" What choice do we have? Hanmu asked simply. Run away. To where? Besides, most humans don't know. Only about 2% of our population works in containment or knows the full truth. Why tell me now? Because we've seen worlds like Earth before in our explorations, worlds with the same warning markers, the same strange phenomena. But no sentient life remained on those worlds. Whatever happened there, no one survived to contain it. Taiho understood then why Earth had been so eager to join the Confederation despite their technological self-sufficiency. They weren't looking for protection or trade. They were looking for confirmation. You wanted to know if others faced the same threats, Taiho said slowly. And more importantly, if anyone has better solutions than containment, Hanmu added. Our oldest records suggest these forces have cycles, periods of dormancy followed by activity. All our models indicate we're entering a more active phase. That evening, as the delegation prepared to depart, Taiho made a decision. Instead of filing a standard diplomatic report, he would request an emergency council session. Earth's containment problems might not be just Earth's concern after all. As his ship pulled away from the orbital station, Taiho gazed down at the blue planet. From space, it looked so peaceful. No hint of the ancient forces locked beneath its surface. No sign of the silent war humans had been fighting since before they built their first cities. He wondered how many other worlds in the galaxy harbored similar secrets. And for the first time in his long diplomatic career, Ambassador Taiho was truly afraid. This is highly irregular. Director Hyunwoo protested as he led Taiho through multiple security checkpoints. After Taiho had formally requested access through diplomatic channels, the Earth Council had reluctantly agreed to a limited tour of what they called Containment Site 12. We classify this as a low-risk facility, explained Dr. Jisoo, the lead researcher. The individuals here cooperate with containment protocols. The first person they met was an elderly man named Do-yeon, who sat in a comfortable room reading a book. Nothing about him appeared remarkable. Do-yeon voluntarily entered containment 50 years ago, explained Dr. Jisoo. He can manipulate probability fields across vast distances. I don't understand, said Taiho. Dr. Jisoo nodded to Do-yeon, who placed his book down. He focused on a cup on the table, and suddenly it tipped over without being touched. That seems minor, Taiho remarked. That was just a demonstration, Do-yeon said softly. When I was younger and couldn't control it, I accidentally caused 3 plane crashes on different continents simultaneously. All I did was have a nightmare. Taiho felt cold. And he's considered low risk. He's cooperative, Dr. Jisoo replied. He's one of hundreds like him. But they're not what keeps most of our personnel awake at night. Taiho shifted uncomfortably. The elderly man had gone back to reading his book, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just admitted to accidentally killing hundreds of people with a thought. May I speak with him? Taiho asked. Dr. Jisoo hesitated but then nodded. Briefly, please understand that stress can sometimes trigger unintended effects. Taiho approached Do-yeon carefully. The old man looked up with kind eyes. You have questions, Do-yeon said. It wasn't a question. Many, admitted Taiho. How is this possible? What you can do? Do-yeon closed his book. I was born this way. My grandmother had it too, but weaker. She could influence small things, make a coin land on heads 10 times in a row, help crops grow better. My ability is much stronger. And you've been here 50 years. Willingly. Where else would I go? Do-yeon asked simply. Out there, a bad dream could kill thousands. Here, I have safeguards. The rooms are lined with materials that dampen my influence. And I have medicine that helps me sleep without dreaming. Taiho glanced around the room. It looked comfortable, but was clearly a prison, no matter how nicely decorated. Don't you resent being locked away? Taiho asked. Do-yeon smiled sadly. I locked myself away, Ambassador. After the plane crashes, I came here voluntarily. The alternative was living with more deaths on my conscience. Dr. Jisu guided Tahoe to the next room. Inside was a young woman who appeared to be in her 20s. She sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed in meditation. "This is Neri," Dr. Jisu said quietly. "She can see possible futures." "A precognitive?" Tahoe asked, impressed. Several species in the Confederation had limited precognitive abilities. "Not exactly," Dr. Jisu explained. "She doesn't just see futures, she creates them. When she focuses on a possibility, it becomes more likely to occur." Neri opened her eyes. "You're thinking I could be useful to your people," she said to Tahoe. "In the next 3 minutes, you'll ask if I could help predict market trends or prevent accidents." Tahoe felt a chill. That was exactly what he had been thinking. "I won't help you," Neri continued, "because I've seen what happens when I do. Economic collapse, war, chaos. The futures I create aren't always good ones. We discovered Nari when she was 16. Dr. Jisu explained. A boy at her school bullied her. She thought about him falling ill. The next day, his entire family was in the hospital with an unknown disease. They moved to another section of the facility. Through a glass wall, Tahoe saw a man in his 40s working at a computer. "Chunho doesn't look dangerous," Tahoe observed. "He isn't, directly," said Dr. Jisu. "He's an information hazard. Any fact he learns becomes universally known to everyone within a certain radius. It sounds harmless until you realize the implications. State secrets, personal information." Tahoe guessed. "That's only the beginning," Dr. Jisu said. "Imagine if he learned how to build a nuclear bomb. Suddenly, every person within 10 kilometers would know too, including children or those with violent tendencies." Tahoe was beginning to understand the scale of Earth's containment problem. These weren't just dangerous individuals, they were walking violations of natural law. "How many of these people exist?" Tahoe asked. "Currently in containment, 4,327 worldwide," Director Hyunwoo said. "But we discover new cases every day." They reached a heavily secured door at the end of the hallway. Through a small window, Tahoe could see only darkness. "What's in there?" he asked. "That's Site 12B, Dr. Jisu said. "It houses non-human entities." Tahoe's skin prickled. "You mean aliens? Before first contact?" "Not aliens," Director Hyunwoo corrected. "At least, not from space. These entities have always been here, long before humans. Some were worshipped as gods. Others were feared as demons. All are contained for good reason." "Can I see them?" Tahoe asked. "No," both humans said at once, with such firmness that Tahoe didn't press further. As they walked back to the entrance, Tahoe noticed a wall of photographs, hundreds of human faces. "Who are they?" he asked. "Our failures," Dr. Jisu said quietly. "People we couldn't help. Containment breaches. Agents lost in the line of duty." Tahoe studied the faces. Many were young, children even. "How do you continue doing this work?" he asked. Director Hyunwoo's expression hardened. "Because the alternative is unthinkable. These forces have always existed on Earth. If we don't contain them, they will reshape reality in ways no living being could survive." As they left the facility, Tahoe looked back at the unmarked building. From the outside, it appeared completely ordinary. Inside were forces that defied comprehension. He wondered how many other ordinary-looking buildings across Earth held similar secrets. The alarms blared across the facility with deafening intensity. Tahoe had been observing a containment tank housing what humans called a mimetic entity when the attack began. A faction from the Orion systems had infiltrated Earth's defenses, convinced humans were developing reality-bending weapons. Their assault breached 3 containment chambers before security protocols activated. "Get to the shelter," shouted Captain Minho as his security team deployed specialized equipment. The mimetic entity, essentially a thought that could replicate and spread through communication, had escaped. Within hours, reports came in of affected individuals across the planet, all repeating the same phrase and exhibiting identical behaviors. But what startled Taiho wasn't the breach itself, it was how calmly humans responded. Emergency protocols activated with practiced precision. Civilians knew exactly which channels to tune to for safety instructions. Children in schools performed containment drills with the same routine familiarity as fire drills. This has happened before, Taiho realized aloud as he watched technicians establishing mental firewalls to prevent the entity from spreading to orbiting ships. Minor breaches occur approximately 14 times per year, Hyunwoo admitted. Major breaches like this, perhaps once every decade. We've never let one escape Earth's orbit. The emergency bunker buzzed with activity. Screens displayed maps of spreading infection zones, marked in red. The mimetic entity had already reached 3 continents. Taiho watched in horror as the red dots multiplied. What exactly escaped? Taiho asked, his voice barely steady. A Class 4 mimetic hazard, replied Dr. Jisoo, who had joined them in the bunker. It's a self-replicating idea that rewrites neural pathways when transmitted through language or images. In simple terms, added Hyunwoo, anyone who hears the phrase or sees the symbol becomes compelled to repeat it and display certain behaviors. On one screen, Taiho saw footage of affected humans. They walked with strange, jerky movements. Their faces showed no emotion, and they all repeated the same sentence over and over. The sky opens to those who speak its name. What does it mean? Taiho asked. Nothing, to our knowledge, Dr. Jisoo said. But the pattern of sounds triggers changes in brain activity. If enough people repeat it in the same geographic area, it creates a feedback loop that can tear holes in local reality. Captain Minho approached with a tablet. Sir, we've identified the attackers. 5 Orion extremists. We've captured 3. 2 were killed when they breached containment Tank 4C. And what was in Tank 4C? Taiho asked, dreading the answer. Nothing got out from there, Hyunwoo said quickly. Too quickly. Taiho noticed the humans exchanging glances. Please, he said, I need to understand what we're facing. After a moment, Hyunwoo nodded. Tank 4C contained a reality anchor. It's what keeps certain laws of physics working consistently in this region. The damage was minimal, but we're seeing fluctuations in gravity and electromagnetic fields within a 2-kilometer radius. Outside, Taiho heard the whine of aircraft. Through the bunker's small window, he saw military vehicles moving with purpose. Those aren't regular troops, he observed. Mimetic countermeasure units, explained Captain Minho. They're specially trained and conditioned to resist infection. They also carry sound-canceling technology to prevent spread through speech. Taiho watched as soldiers in specialized gear moved through streets, identifying infected individuals and placing strange helmets on them. What are those devices? He asked. Cognitive reset helmets, Dr. Jisoo said. They disrupt the mimetic pattern and restore normal brain function. Most people recover fully, though they lose memories from the time they were infected. A technician called out from across the room. Sir, we've got confirmation of infection on the cruise ship Pacific Horizon. 800 passengers, 43 already showing symptoms. Hyunwoo cursed. That's in international waters. Minho, deploy the naval team. Taiho marveled at the efficiency. Within minutes, helicopters were dispatched to the ship. The humans had clearly done this many times before. You said this happens 14 times a year. Taiho asked in disbelief. Minor breaches, Hyunwoo clarified, usually contained within a single facility. This is more serious, but still manageable. And the attackers? Why would anyone deliberately release such things? Hyunwoo's face darkened. They believe we're developing weapons. In truth, we're doing the opposite, containing forces that could be weaponized. The irony is that by attacking us, they've potentially unleashed exactly what they feared. Hours passed. Taiho watched as the red dots on the map slowly turned green as areas were cleared. The methodical response was impressive, almost mechanical in its precision. May I speak with one of the attackers? Tahoe asked. Hyunwoo hesitated but eventually agreed. They took Tahoe to a secure cell where one of the Orion extremists was being held. The alien, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid, glared at them with 4 eyes. "Why did you do this?" Tahoe asked in the Orion language. "To expose the truth," the prisoner hissed. "Humans are building reality weapons. We've seen the energy signatures. No planet needs this many quantum containment fields unless they're developing something terrible." "You don't understand what you've done," Tahoe replied. "These aren't weapons. They're prisons for things that have always been here." The prisoner laughed. "A convenient story." At that moment, an alarm sounded, different from the first. "What now?" Tahoe asked as they hurried back to the command center. "The mimetic entity is evolving," Dr. Jisoo explained, her voice tight with worry. "It's changing its transmission vector. No longer just speech. It's adapting to spread through written text." On screens around the room, the phrase began appearing everywhere, on digital billboards, phone screens, even printer outputs. "How is that possible?" Tahoe asked. "It's just an idea, isn't it?" "That's like saying a virus is just a protein shell," Dr. Jisoo replied. "Mimetic entities can adapt just like biological ones. This is why we keep them contained." For the first time, Tahoe saw real fear on the humans' faces. Whatever calm efficiency they had shown before was being tested. And yet, they continued working. New protocols were activated, systems shut down, and slowly, painfully, the spread began to slow. As night fell, Tahoe stood at the window, watching Earth's lights below. Somewhere out there, humans were fighting an invisible war against something that shouldn't exist, and somehow they were winning. While containment teams worked to recapture the entity, Tahoe was escorted to a secure underground archive beneath an ancient human monument. "If you're to understand why Earth maintains these protocols, you need context," said historian Jinwoo, an elderly man with tired eyes. In the archive, Tahoe saw artifacts dating back thousands of years, stone tablets with warning symbols, medieval texts describing rituals to bind creatures of darkness, and modern scientific papers analyzing dimensional anomalies. "Earth has always been a nexus point," explained Jinwoo. "What ancient humans called demons, gods, or spirits were early manifestations of these forces. Every human culture developed methods to contain them. Modern protocols simply unified these approaches using science." Jinwoo brought out star charts of ancient civilizations. These mark worlds where similar anomalies once appeared. "Notice anything?" Tahoe studied the charts, then checked them against modern stellar maps. His blood ran cold. "These star systems, many don't exist anymore." "Exactly," Jinwoo nodded solemnly. "They lacked what humanity developed through necessity. The will and means to contain these forces rather than worship, fear, or exploit them." The underground archive was cool and dry. Tahoe's footsteps echoed against stone floors that had been walked upon for centuries. Glass cases lined the walls, holding objects that seemed ordinary at first glance. A clay pot, a wooden mask, a simple metal box. "Don't be fooled by appearances," Jinwoo said, noticing Tahoe's wandering gaze. "That mask once caused everyone who saw it to lose their faces. The pot created endless water until it drowned an entire city. The box. Well, we still don't know exactly what the box does, but 3 research teams disappeared studying it." Jinwoo led Tahoe to a circular room at the center of the archive. The walls were covered with paintings and carvings from different human time periods. Despite their different styles, they all showed similar scenes, humans facing strange creatures, holding them back with symbols and rituals. "This is our history," Jinwoo said softly. "Not the history we teach in schools, but the real story of humanity." He pointed to a cave painting that showed stick figures surrounding a large mini-eyed shape. "This is from 30,000 years ago, the earliest known containment ritual." Next was an Egyptian hieroglyph showing priests with special tools around a bound figure. This is a containment procedure for what they called chaos serpents, reality-bending entities that could reshape matter. Tahoe stopped at a medieval European illustration. It showed monks using prayers and holy symbols to trap a demon in a box. Religious containment. Religion was often our first line of defense. Jinwoo explained. Holy water, blessed items, prayers. Many work because they focus human intent and belief, which can affect these entities. They moved to a long table covered with open books and scrolls. Every culture developed methods. Jinwoo continued. Chinese feng shui, Native American medicine wheels, African spirit traps. All were practical systems to contain these forces. Tahoe picked up a modern scientific paper. From ritual to science, he read aloud. Yes, Jinwoo nodded. About 200 years ago, humans began to understand these phenomena. Scientifically, we learned that what worked in ritual could be explained through quantum mechanics, probability manipulation, and dimensional physics. Jinwoo pressed a button, and the center of the room opened. A holographic display showed Earth, then zoomed out to show the solar system, then the galaxy. This is what we've learned, Jinwoo said. Earth isn't unique. There are nexus points throughout the universe where reality is thinner, where forces from outside can enter. The display showed several star systems highlighted in red. These are the worlds ancient humans identified as similar to Earth, worlds where these forces emerge. Tahoe watched as, one by one, the red stars winked out. They're gone, he whispered. Yes, Jinwoo confirmed. In some cases, we found evidence of civilizations that tried to use these forces as weapons or energy sources. In others, they simply ignored the danger until it was too late. The historian walked to a glass case containing a simple stone tablet. The writing on it was unlike any Tahoe had seen before. This came from a probe we sent to the ruins of a world in the Cygnus system, Jinwoo explained. We managed to translate it. It's a warning about forces breaking through from the space between spaces. Their containment failed. The entire planet was pulled into a dimensional rift. Tahoe felt a chill. And you believe the same could happen to Earth. It has almost happened, many times, Jinwoo said grimly. The difference is that humans, for all our flaws, recognized the danger early. We developed containment rather than exploitation. They moved to another section of the archive. Here, the artifacts were more recent. Containment suits from the 1950s, early monitoring equipment, and photographs of serious-looking humans in lab coats. The modern containment bureau started after what humans call the Second World War, Jinwoo explained. Before that, containment was handled by secret societies, religious orders, and government agencies working separately. Tahoe noticed a wall of photographs. Men and women of different ages and backgrounds, all wearing simple uniforms. Who are they? The first containment specialists, Jinwoo said with respect in his voice. They systematized what had been folklore and superstition. They developed the first scientific methods for containing these entities. Jinwoo stepped to a large book bound in red leather. This is the first containment manual. It standardized procedures across all sites. It's been updated many times, but the basic principles remain the same. He opened the book to show pages of detailed instructions. Containment is our first priority. Understanding is secondary. Some forces cannot be understood by human minds. Attempting to do so can be dangerous in itself. Tahoe looked at the ancient artifacts, the modern equipment, the faces of humans who had dedicated their lives to holding back forces that could unmake reality. He finally understood why Earth had developed as it had, not just as a civilization, but as a guardian. Your people have carried this burden alone for so long, Tahoe said quietly. Jinwoo nodded. And now you know why we joined the Confederation. Not just for trade or technology, but because we hope to find allies who might understand our mission, who might help us carry this burden. As they left the archive, Tahoe looked back at the collection of humanity's long struggle against chaos. He wondered if the Confederation was ready for the truth about what lurked in the dark corners of reality, and whether they would stand with Earth or run from what they learned. 3 weeks after the breach, the mimetic entity was finally contained. Representatives from across the Galactic Confederation gathered on Earth for an emergency summit. Earth represents both danger and opportunity. Tahoe addressed the assembly. They harbor forces that could threaten galactic stability, but they've also developed the most advanced containment technologies we've ever encountered. The vote was unanimous. Earth would become headquarters for the new Galactic Containment Division, with humans training specialists from all member worlds. 5 years later, Tahoe watched the first graduation ceremony for the division. Representatives from 27 species took the containment oath, promising to guard reality against forces beyond comprehension. Young Officer Minji stepped forward to receive her assignment. Like many human recruits, she was descendant from generations of containment specialists. "Why did you join?" Tahoe asked her. "Because someone has to stand guard," she replied without hesitation. Earth has always understood that great power brings greater responsibility. Now the galaxy knows why we keep these forces locked away. Tahoe nodded, finally understanding the peculiar mix of caution and courage that defined humanity. They weren't fearless. They simply knew better than any species what there was to fear, and had resolved to face it anyway. The grand hall of the new Galactic Containment Headquarters sparkled with light. Built into a mountain on Earth's northern continent, the structure combined human containment architecture with advanced alien technology. Beings from dozens of worlds mingled beneath its high ceiling. Tahoe, now High Ambassador to Earth, stood on the raised platform beside Director Hyunwoo. 5 years had changed them both. Hyunwoo's hair showed more gray. Tahoe's skin had developed the subtle wrinkles his species showed with age and in wisdom. "Did you ever imagine this day?" Tahoe asked quietly as they watched the graduates receiving their badges. "Never," admitted Hyunwoo. "For thousands of years, we carried this burden alone. We thought we always would." The breach had changed everything. When the mimetic entity was finally contained, it had taken the combined efforts of Earth specialists and Confederation scientists. What humans had achieved through trial and error for centuries, alien science had enhanced and refined. The graduates lined up in their silver-gray uniforms. Humans stood alongside beings with scales, fur, tentacles, and crystalline structures. All had completed the most rigorous training program in the galaxy. "I was against this at first," Hyunwoo said. "Sharing our knowledge seemed too dangerous." "And now?" Tahoe asked. "Now I understand it was our only hope." The containment failures were increasing. Earth couldn't hold the line forever. The room hushed as the ancient containment oath began. The words were projected in multiple languages, but the meaning remained the same across all translations. "I stand as guardian between reality and chaos. I contain that which must not be free. I protect those who cannot protect themselves. Until my final breath, I keep the watch." When the ceremony ended, Tahoe spotted Officer Minji. She was speaking with a group of new recruits, her confidence clear despite her youth. Tahoe approached her as the group dispersed. "Officer Minji, congratulations on your assignment," he said. She bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Ambassador. I'm honored to lead the first response team." "Your family must be proud," Tahoe said. "I understand containment service runs in your blood." 7 generations, she confirmed. "My great-grandfather died containing the Moscow anomaly. My mother still serves at Site 34. Tahoe studied her face, so young yet so determined. "Why did you join?" he asked. "Because someone has to stand guard," she replied without hesitation. "Earth has always understood that great power brings greater responsibility. Now the galaxy knows why we keep these forces locked away." Later that evening, Tahoe walked through the new containment wing. Unlike the old facilities, these chambers utilized technology from across the Confederation. Each containment system was stronger, more efficient, and more humane for those who required containment. He stopped at one chamber where the elderly Doyen, now well over 100 years old, sat talking with a young alien researcher. Ambassador, Do-hyun greeted him with a smile. Have you met Xela? She's developing a probability-dampening field based on my abilities. Soon, people like me might be able to live normal lives. That's wonderful news, Tahoe said sincerely. As he continued his tour, Tahoe passed the memorial wall. It had grown since his first visit to Earth. Now it included names from other worlds, the first non-human casualties in the containment war. Director Hyun-woo joined him there. The Orion attackers were released today, he said. They've been rehabilitated and will return home. Do they understand what they nearly caused? Tahoe asked. Yes. In fact, 2 have joined the containment division. They want to make amends. They walked together to the observation deck. Below them spread the training grounds where recruits practiced both ancient human containment rituals and modern scientific methods. The combination had proven more effective than either approach alone. The old religions had it partly right, Hyun-woo mused. These forces have always been with us. They called them gods and demons, but they understood the need for boundaries, for containment. In the distance, a containment team was returning from a mission. They moved with quick efficiency, securing an object in a specialized container. Another successful retrieval, Hyun-woo said with satisfaction. 10 years ago, that operation would have cost lives. Tahoe watched the team, noting how the different species worked together seamlessly. Humans are remarkable, he said. Most species would have been destroyed by what you face daily. We're not special, Hyun-woo said. We were just the first to survive long enough to develop containment rather than worship or exploitation. Others would have done the same, given time. Perhaps, Tahoe conceded. But not all would have chosen to share that knowledge once they had it. As night fell over the facility, Tahoe watched the stars appear. Somewhere out there were other nexus points, other worlds facing the same dangers Earth had faced alone for millennia. But they wouldn't face them alone anymore. He finally understood the peculiar mix of caution and courage that defined humanity. They weren't fearless. They simply knew better than any species what there was to fear and had resolved to face it anyway. And now that resolve would protect not just one world, but all worlds. The end.